Cartels are running an unregulated, deep-water navy. They're beating governments at their own game. It sounds absurd. It's entirely true. You think of cartels and you picture street-level chaos. You don't picture aerospace-level engineering happening under a jungle canopy. But right now, out in the ocean, unmanned drone submarines equipped with Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet are carrying heavy drug loads in total silence. No crew on board. Extremely low radar signature. Just an autonomous ghost ship carrying hundreds of millions of dollars. How does an illegal enterprise build a stealth navy? They don't do it with military hardware. They do it with sheer, brute force adaptation. The media always gets this wrong. Every time a news broadcast details a seized narco submarine, armchair analysts assume these are state-of-the-art metal warships. They aren't. Steel's a huge liability. Steel is heavy. Steel reflects radar waves so aggressively that every coastal defense grid within 50 miles knows exactly where you are the second you leave port. So the cartel engineers abandoned it. Instead, they turned to cheap plywood. Wood, coated in extremely thick layers of fiberglass and Kevlar. That specific material combination makes the hull virtually invisible to sonar by absorbing the acoustic waves rather than bouncing them back. These vessels aren't submarines at all. They're self-propelled semi-submersibles. They cruise just inches below the surface, with only a cramped cockpit and a tiny exhaust pipe breaking the waterline. A $2 million tube built to do exactly one thing: evade detection. But this stealth fleet didn't happen overnight. It started with a completely primitive experiment. November 1988. Surfers off the coast of Boca Raton, Florida, noticed something strange floating in the water. They paddled out. They found a 21-foot metal cylinder sitting just below the surface. Empty. Unmanned. Designed to be towed underwater by a separate boat. That was the cartels testing the waters. They realized surface speedboats were getting intercepted by the Coast Guard at a disastrous rate, which meant they had to go under. That metal tube was a crude first step, a rough prototype for a logistical nightmare that would soon terrorize global authorities, which meant they needed propulsion. A towed cylinder is completely useless if the towboat gets intercepted, so they built their own engines. 1993. Colombian authorities captured the San Andres sub off an island coast. This was a major leap forward. Built from wood and fiberglass, self-propelled. It could move under its own power while staying mostly submerged, hiding from visual patrols. They had successfully built an independent stealth boat in a remote, dirt-floored jungle shipyard. No dry docks, no heavy machinery, just manual labor and brutal efficiency. The blueprint was established. That level of adaptation is terrifying. Subscribe to this channel and you'll start noticing. How many illicit networks operate right under the radar of global authorities? And then the cartels got greedy. They wanted more cargo, more capacity. September 7th, 2000. Colombian National Police Director General Luis Ernesto Gilibert walks into a warehouse in Facatativa. This warehouse is 7,500 feet above sea level, nowhere near the ocean. Inside, he stares at a gigantic, half-built, 100-foot steel submarine, designed by Russian engineers. Engineered to hold 200 tons of drugs. The scale of it was enormous. It looked like a state-sponsored military operation. But this towering metal beast was a dead end. Too heavy, too complex to transport down the mountains. The cartels abandoned the Russian steel dream because it drew far too much attention from international intelligence agencies. So they went back to the jungle. They went back to fiberglass. And they perfected it. July 2nd, 2010. Ecuadorian police wade into a mangrove swamp near San Lorenzo and find a monster. Not a semi-submersible. A true, fully submersible diesel-electric narco submarine. The first one ever captured. This vessel could vanish completely. It could dive to 50 feet underwater, severing all visual and radar contact with the surface. Who builds a fully functional submarine in a swamp? They had cracked the engineering problem of diving and surfacing without military-grade equipment. They built a sophisticated $4 million submersible using custom Kevlar and fiberglass. That's an engineering miracle. A dark, destructive miracle. February 2011. The Colombian military raids Timbiqui and finds another 100-foot fiberglass, fully submersible vessel. This one could carry 8 tons of cargo. But diesel engines are loud. They create blinding heat signatures. The authorities were using thermal imaging aircraft to hunt them down. So the cartels eliminated the heat. November 2020. authorities raid an artisan shipyard in that same region and find a fully electric submarine capable of carrying 6 tons of drugs. No diesel exhaust, no acoustic noise. They packed it with 10 tons of batteries. 10 tons. It had a terribly short range, but it was completely silent. The perfect stealth vehicle for creeping past coastal defenses undetected. If this extreme level of criminal engineering is hitting different, take a second to hit like. It genuinely helps the algorithm show this to more people who need to see the reality of how these networks operate. Who actually designs these machines? It takes serious talent. Oscar Moreno Ricardo was one of them. They called him the King of Submarines. He wasn't a cartel boss pulling triggers. He was a master engineer, a mercenary architect. For 2 decades, he designed custom stealth submersibles for multiple rival cartels simultaneously. He ran an illicit, very successful narco-submarine construction operation out of the jungle. He understood hydrodynamics. He understood radar evasion. He built boats that evaded the most advanced military navies on Earth for 20 years. Colombian police finally arrested him in January 2022. But his designs are still in the water. The blueprints survived. And those designs demand a horrific human toll. These aren't luxury vessels. They are death traps. November 2019. Spanish authorities intercept a narco submarine off the coast of Galicia. It had traveled all the way from the Amazon River, the first documented transatlantic crossing. A former Spanish amateur boxing champion named Agustin Alvarez agreed to pilot it. He and 2 crewmates spent 27 days locked inside a cramped, dark wooden tube. The cabin was toxic, filled with gas fumes and engine exhaust. They navigated across an entire ocean in a vessel with no safety standards, zero comfort, and constant fear of sinking to the bottom. What happens when the engine dies in the middle of the Atlantic? They intentionally sank the craft off Spain to avoid arrest. Smugglers locked themselves inside homemade wooden tubes for weeks to protect cargo worth over $100 million, knowing that if a single valve fails, they will die. The human desperation required to make that trip is hard to grasp. That human element was the last remaining vulnerability. Crews need food. Crews panic. Crews leave evidence behind. So the cartels eliminated the crew entirely. July 2nd, 2025. The Colombian Navy spots something moving off the Caribbean coast near Santa Marta. A remote-controlled drone submarine. Uncrewed. It was guided by a Starlink satellite antenna bolted directly to the hull. Can you even comprehend that? The cartels are now paying for commercial satellite internet to remotely pilot autonomous submarines across the ocean. No human error. No hostage situations if intercepted. Just a robotic torpedo running a predetermined GPS route. It was completely empty, caught during a trial run. A proof of concept. The test worked. And that technology immediately went global. They aren't just targeting the United States and Europe anymore. They are crossing the Pacific. Between 2024 and late 2025, a major shift occurred. Martin Fugi Jr., a local villager in the Solomon Islands, walked down to the beach one morning. He was heading to market when he spotted a giant, Colombian-made stealth submarine floating half a kilometer offshore. The engine was gone, abandoned, and it wasn't the only one. Police intercepted 3 separate narco submarines in that region within 3 months. The cartels are pushing cocaine and methamphetamine into the Asia-Pacific market using jungle-built submarines that drift across the world's largest ocean. The payloads keep getting bigger. On January 26, 2026, Portuguese authorities announced the interception of a vessel off the Azores. When they crack open the fiberglass hull, they find a record-breaking 9 tons of cocaine. 9 tons. In a single, homemade submarine. The sheer financial value locked inside that cheap wooden shell is sky-high. And here's the worst part. The media claims these boats are single-use, scuttled after one trip. Wrong. Investigators have found zinc sacrificial anodes on several seized craft. Those prevent corrosion, which proves these aren't just disposables. Some are engineered for multiple voyages. This isn't a war on drugs anymore. It's a technological arms race against an enemy that builds better, faster, and stealthier hardware than the authorities trying to stop them. A multi-billion-dollar ghost fleet running right beneath our feet. If any of this stuck with you, like and subscribe.